Okay, so I've been thinking about this whole Danny Morgan and Ross Cullum situation, and my brain is just spinning in circles. Like, I keep going back to that scene where Jason gets hauled off by the WSB, and Wait, let me back up. First, we need to look at the absolute mess that is currently happening with Jason taking the fall for Rocco Falconeri. It's weird. Like, really weird. The whole thing is just weird. Jason is literally sacrificing his freedom, basically his entire life with his kids, to protect Dante and Lulu's son, which, okay, is very on brand for Jason. He is the ultimate protector, the guy who will throw himself on the grenade without a second thought. But then again, that doesn't explain why he let things get so out of hand in the first place. I mean, Jason had a plan. He was supposed to take Cullum out cleanly. He had the sniper rifle, he was on the roof, he was ready to pull the trigger. But Jack Brennan was standing right there, and Jason couldn't get a clear shot. So he aborted. And that one decision, that one moment of hesitation, basically created this massive butterfly effect that ended with Rocco shooting Cullum in the back on Pier 55. Actually, no. First, I should mention how Danny is processing all of this, because that is the real core of what is bugging me right now. Danny just stood there and watched his father get loaded into a WSB transport van by Jack Brennan and his goons. He was crying, he was devastated, and he thinks he is never going to see his dad again. And honestly, he might not, at least not for a while. The WSB is taking Jason to some unknown black site facility to await trial for shooting a federal agent. That is heavy stuff for a kid to process. But here is the thing. Danny doesn't know the truth. He doesn't know that Jason didn't actually pull the trigger on the pier. He thinks his dad is a cold-blooded killer who just took out a dirty WSB director. Or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe Danny knows his dad is capable of violence, but seeing it result in Jason being ripped away from him is breaking his brain. What was I saying? Oh, right, Danny's psychological state. He is a Morgan, but he is also a Quartermain, and he has this deep-seated need for justice, but also a very dark genetic legacy. So, what happens when Danny finds out the truth? Because the truth always comes out in Port Charles. It is basically the #1 rule of this town. Someone is going to talk. Rocco is already eaten up with guilt. Nathan West and Lulu Spencer are trying to run this massive cover-up, swearing Rocco to absolute silence because if the WSB finds out a teenager shot their director, Rocco's life is effectively over. But Rocco is just a kid. He is traumatized. He was hiding behind a wall on Pier 55, watching Cullum knock Britt Westbourne unconscious, and then raise an iron rod to bash Jason's head in. Rocco grabbed the dropped gun and shot Cullum in the back. That is severe trauma. Rocco is not going to be able to keep that bottled up forever. He is going to crack. Or wait, maybe Charlotte Cassadine figures it out? Charlotte drove Danny to Carly's house to beg Valentine for help. Charlotte is smart. She is observant. She might overhear something, piece the clues together, and blab the secret to Danny. If Danny finds out that Rocco is the real shooter, and that Jason threw his life away to protect him, how is Danny going to react? I mean, not exactly with pure hatred for Rocco, but kind of? It is complicated. On one hand, Danny might be furious that Rocco is letting Jason take the fall. He might feel like Rocco is a coward for not confessing to the police. But on the other hand, Danny is smart enough to realize that Rocco actually saved Jason's life in that moment. If Rocco hadn't pulled the trigger, Cullum would have killed Jason, and probably Britt too. So, Danny's anger is going to need a target, and that target is not going to be Rocco, it is going to be Ross Cullum. Cullum is the root cause of all this misery. Cullum is the one who blackmailed Britt, who murdered Marco Rios in Alexis Davis's office, who forced Jason into this impossible corner. Cullum is the villain, and Danny is going to realize that Cullum needs to be eliminated. This brings me to the whole mini Stone Cold theory. I have been thinking about this a lot, like way too much. Is Danny going to take matters into his own hands? The spoilers are heavily hinting that Danny might target Cullum, and honestly, it makes perfect sense from a narrative standpoint. Jason is gone. He is locked up in a WSB transport van, completely helpless. Danny feels powerless. He is just a kid, but he wants to protect his family. He wants to fix this. And in Danny's mind, the only way to fix this is to finish what Rocco started. Cullum survived the gunshot. Lucas Jones, in the most tragic twist of irony ever, operated on Cullum in Trauma 1 and saved his life, completely unaware that he was saving the man who just brutally stabbed his boyfriend Marco to death. So now Cullum is lying unconscious in the ICU. He is vulnerable. He is a sitting duck. Okay, wait, let me back up again. We need to talk about the logistics of Danny actually getting to Cullum. Because right now, Jocelyn Jacks and Britt Westbourne are already plotting to murder Cullum in the ICU. Jocelyn is pressuring Britt to use her hospital access to sneak something fatal into Cullum's IV bag, and Britt is seriously considering it. So there is already a line forming to kill this guy. If Danny decides to go after Cullum, he is going to have to beat Britt and Jocelyn to the punch. Or maybe their plans intersect? I think it was episode 12? Or Trenton? Somewhere around there where Danny showed he has a really dark, impulsive streak. If Danny gets his hands on a gun, maybe he steals one from Sonny's place, or finds one in Jason's old stash. He could march right into General Hospital with a fatal goal in mind. Just picture it. Danny Morgan walking down the sterile white hallways of GH, his face completely blank, channeling his father's stoic, dead-eyed determination. It would be chilling. It would be the ultimate tragedy of Jason's legacy. Jason spent his entire life trying to keep his kids away from the mob violence, away from the guns and the blood, and now his own sacrifice has pushed his son right over the edge. It's weird. Like, really weird. The whole thing is just weird. But it is also brilliant storytelling. If Danny actually pulls a gun on Cullum, it changes everything. It changes Danny's trajectory permanently. He crosses a line that you cannot uncross. But then again, that doesn't explain how Danny would get past the police guards. Cullum is a high-profile WSB director who was just shot. There have to be guards outside his ICU room, right? Dante Falconeri is drowning in tough cases at the PCPD, but surely he posted a detail outside Cullum's door. Unless... wait, what if the WSB pulled jurisdiction? Jack Brennan is running the show right now. Maybe Brennan wants Cullum dead too? Brennan was arguing with Cullum, questioning his loyalty. Brennan knows Cullum is dirty. Maybe Brennan intentionally leaves Cullum unguarded, hoping someone finishes the job so the WSB doesn't have to deal with the public fallout of a rogue director. If Brennan leaves the door open, Danny could slip right in. I mean, imagine the psychological weight on Danny right now. He is living with Alexis Davis, who just walked into her law office and found Marco Rios bleeding out on the floor. Alexis is traumatized. The whole town is traumatized. And Danny is just absorbing all of this dark energy. He is a sponge for the trauma of Port Charles. He knows his dad is a killer. He knows his dad's friends are mobsters. And he knows the system is broken. The WSB is corrupt. The police can't protect them. So Danny has to become the protector. It is a terrifying evolution for his character. Actually, no. First, I should mention how this impacts Jason. If Jason finds out that Danny is going after Cullum, he is going to lose his mind. Jason took the fall for Rocco specifically to prevent a kid from having their life ruined by violence. If his own son picks up a gun to avenge him, Jason's entire sacrifice is rendered completely meaningless. It is a Shakespearean level of tragedy. Jason is sitting in a WSB black site, stoic and silent, thinking he did the right thing, while his son is slowly turning into a carbon copy of him on the outside. And what about Rocco? If Danny goes after Cullum, Rocco is going to feel even more guilty. Rocco is going to feel like he infected Danny with this violence. Nathan and Lulu are trying so hard to protect Rocco, but you can't protect these kids from the reality of the world they live in. Port Charles is a dangerous place. Cullum is a monster. He stabbed Marco, he blackmailed Britt, he threatened Lucas. He is a menace. Danny knows this. Danny probably hears the adults whispering about it. He knows Cullum is the reason his dad is gone. Sometimes I lose my train of thought when I try to map out all these intersecting storylines. What was I saying? Oh right, Danny's shooting Cullum. If Danny actually goes through with it, does he succeed? I kinda doubt they would let a teenager successfully murder a federal agent on network television. Or maybe they would. I don't know. General Hospital has gone to some dark places before. But more likely, Danny gets caught right before he pulls the trigger. Maybe Dante catches him. That would be poetic. Dante, who is completely clueless about his own son shooting Cullum, ends up stopping Jason's son from finishing the job. Dante would have to look Danny in the eye and talk him down, telling him that violence isn't the answer, all while having no idea that his own kid is the one who started it. Or maybe Jocelyn catches Danny. Jocelyn is already plotting to kill Cullum with Britt. If Jocelyn walks into the ICU to stand lookout for Britt, and she finds Danny standing over Cullum's bed with a gun, what does she do? Jocelyn hates the mob violence. She constantly rants about Sonny needing to be brought to justice, but she is also fiercely protective of her family. She loves Danny. She wouldn't want to see Danny ruin his life. Jocelyn might actually have to stop Danny from doing the exact same thing she was about to help Britt do. The hypocrisy would be amazing. It would be such a great character moment for Jocelyn to realize that her own thirst for vengeance is trickling down to the younger generation. Anyway, the point is... Wait, what was the point? The point is that Danny Morgan is a ticking time bomb. The writers are clearly setting him up for a major emotional explosion. He has lost his dad, he is surrounded by trauma, and he has a clear target in Ross Cullum. Whether he actually pulls the trigger or not, the intent is going to be there. Danny is going to take matters into his own hands because he feels like the adults have failed him. Jason failed him by getting arrested. Sonny failed him by not protecting Jason. The WSB is corrupt. The police are useless. Danny is alone in this. Probably doesn't matter, but I noticed that Danny was wearing a black t-shirt in that scene where Jason was taken away. Jason always wears black t-shirts. It was a subtle visual cue that Danny is stepping into his father's shoes. It's weird. Like, really weird. The whole thing is just weird. But I love it. I love when the show leans into the generational trauma of these families. The Morgans, the Quartermains, the Corinthos clan, they are all trapped in this cycle of violence, and Danny is just the latest victim. Okay, I know I just said the opposite, but hear me out. What if Danny doesn't use a gun? What if Danny figures out Britt's plan? What if he overhears Jocelyn and Britt talking about the fatal IV drip, and he sneaks into the ICU and administers it himself? That would be even darker. A cold, calculated medical murder. It would require so much more premeditation than just pointing a gun in a fit of rage. If Danny does that, he is truly lost. He would be crossing into sociopath territory. But I don't think they will go that far. Danny is angry, but he isn't a monster. He is just a kid who wants his dad back.